Greetings, everyone. My name is Nancy Kogelmeyer. I am the programming chair for the Maine Women's Conference. Welcome to our January Maine Women's Conference WeAreME interview with Angela Okafor. Before we get into the official script for tonight and the interview itself, I need to disclose something, which is that I am pitch hitting for another one of my fellow board members who was unfortunately ran into a household emergency related to the severe cold we've had the past 48 hours. So I will do my best to follow the plan. I know we'll have an outstanding conversation with Angela. I will also concurrently be doing the various tech functions associated with hosting this interview. So I ask you to please be patient with me as I jump between the two. The mission of the Maine Women's Conference is to draw women together to connect, educate, inspire, and empower one another to assume new and expanded roles in the workplace, in our lives, and in the community. The WeAreME interview series was conceived against this mission and actually created as the pandemic hit us a couple years ago. It features gritty, determined, and inspirational women of Maine who will share their stories with us, share their lessons learned, and their words of wisdom. Tonight, we're very excited to be talking to Angela Okafor. Angela is an attorney, a businesswoman, and the first immigrant and woman of color to be a Bangor City Council member. Now, during our conversation, I encourage all of you to connect with your fellow attendees and share your thoughts and questions via the chat function, which is open, and through a couple of polls we'll be asking throughout. They're the first one. I have the first one coming up right now, which I'd ask you to please help us out by filling it in. We're going to reserve time to answer your questions at the end of the interview. So please submit all questions if possible using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Now, without further delay, I would like to introduce Angela Okafor and welcome her to this WeAreME interview. Angela, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. Such an honor. Thank you.
I know this is going to be a fascinating interview, and I want to jump right into the questions and hear all about your fascinating life and wonderful accomplishments. So why don't we start with, could you tell us a little bit about your life in Nigeria and what led your family to relocate to Maine?
Yeah, I was born and raised in the southeastern part of Nigeria, majority Christian. I was born and raised Christian, and I am the second of 5 children. So I have one older brother and I have 3 younger ones, 2 boys, and I'm the first girl. And growing up in Nigeria was, there was nothing else I knew other than my life in Nigeria. We struggled. My father was a teacher, so obviously, and not just teacher, but mostly in Christian schools. Mm-hmm. So we struggled a lot to go to school. There were times growing up, we weren't even sure if we were going to see the bare minimum to eat the next meal. And it was a lot of struggle. And, in Nigeria too, growing up as a first daughter in any family, there's a lot of responsibilities placed on you. So you are pretty much like a second woman, like second mother, second wife, whatever you want to call it. In the absence of my mother, I remember I'm older, my youngest sibling is 7 years younger than myself. But I remember when my mom had him, I was literally his babysitter, So these are things you really don't have a choice than to grow up very fast, especially when you're the first girl in the family. So, and then growing up in Nigeria too, to be a woman, as at then, things are changing right now, but my own time as a woman, you are expected to be married at some certain point in time. You know, by the time, I remember when I was still in college, some of my colleagues in college were already getting married, you know, and you are expected to go from college to your husband's house. And if you are to go to college, most parents then wouldn't even want their girls to go to school, worst of all, to go to study law.
Right.
Because as a woman, you're supposed to be submissive. You're supposed to be pretty and be seen and, you know, be in the kitchen or the bedroom and making babies and all of that. But even if you go to school, especially not law, like, you know, how are you supposed to, you know, be standing up to a man when you're supposed to? So it was a struggle too. I fought with my family at some point. Literally, I had to run away from the house because the tension became too much. My dad was supportive, but, you know, at some point, because in my extended family too, I was the first daughter. So the obligation and the responsibilities is even more because they expect that you set the pace for even your other cousins that are female. So you're supposed to be married so that others will be married. If you're not married, you know, it's a stigma on the family, on the extended family that, you know, everybody wants their daughters to be able to get married. So this first girl has to get married. And then this first girl wants to study law, thereby potentially becoming a problem that will trickle down, you know. So the pressure on my dad became too much at some point that he started bothering me. So I literally ran away from the house.
And how old were you at that point?
It was in 2000. It was in 2001, 2002. So I was born 82. Yeah, I'm not very good at maths.
Right.
So I have to do the maths. I
like 18.
At 24, what?
Maybe 18.
Yeah, I was around 18, 19, 20 then. So I literally moved in with one of my friends who kind of became like an elder sister in school. So we, you know, she was very supportive and all of that. So that was how finally my dad, he was supportive, but, you know, the pressure, he wasn't outrightly against it. But when the extended pressures from the extended family became too much on him, you know, he started to kind of mount pressures on me. And of course, the cost of even studying law, like I said, we weren't rich. So I you know, how was this going to pay for my school fees and all of that? When I got admission, my business started way back. I would make a lot of snacks, native food. We had some stores around us. So I would want to distribute to them to sell, but they wouldn't want to buy from me. So I decided, okay, how about I just bring them and display them in your store? By the evening time, when I get back from school, whatever you sell, you give me. Whatever you don't sell, I'll take back. So there was no responsibility on them. And that was what they took. So that was part of what I was doing. I was helping people to do some shopping because my friends would call me like my eyes, kind of eagle eyes, kind of. So I don't know what it is, but I've always had this knack for fashion, and like I know how to understand people's body and kind of know what to fit that will fit them. So I was using that to help people do shopping, you know, like people getting ready for weddings or stuff like that, or even just personal shoppings. I'll help them put things together. I was also a self-trained makeup artist. So I was pretty much doing so many things. Sometimes my friends will have maybe wears they were tired of, they want to toss it out, and I'll like, you know, give it to me. And then by the time I kind of rearrange it and put it on, they're like, oh, give me back my clothes. You know, so these were ways I was able to help myself. There were times, yes, make money and help myself through.
So how did you get from there to Maine?
Marriage.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a source. That's a solution. What did you do? Go find a guy? It's still how it happened.
I met my husband. We met and we got married, and he got recruited as a pharmacist by Right Aid. So that was how we came. We came on a work visa.
Interesting. Okay. And then, okay. Interesting. Well, good for you. You did that. You got here. And then did you go to law school here?
No, I studied law in Nigeria. So when I came here, I learned that there were 2 states, Maine and New York, that would allow foreign trained lawyers to sit for their bar exam on the condition that if you turn in your transcript and your transcripts are evaluated and they feel it's at par with an American awarded law degree, then you will be allowed to apply for the bar exam, of which it's up to you to study and pass. So I sent in my transcript to Maine, Board of Bar Examiners, and to New York. And before I knew it, New York sent me an eligibility letter and I went and did the bar exam there. But Maine is still been a lot of struggles, which is part of why I'm into advocacy too, looking for ways to losing barriers that foreign trained non-medical professionals, especially. Medical professionals do face barriers too, but non-medical professionals is so great, to find ways to cut across them.
So as I announced earlier, I jumped into this interview at the last minute. So I don't have a lot of background. So I'm going to go off script a little bit and ask, so how long have you been in Maine?
I came 2007, 2008.
Okay, all right. So some time. And you're still fighting this battle on the attorney front?
Yes.
Well, good thing you have attorney training. Okay, so we are understanding that one of the next questions was, what are some of the challenges you faced in moving to Maine? And certainly that's a big one for both of you. What other challenges?
It was, of course, culture shock was a huge thing. I didn't like the cold, but of course, and not having family support was a huge, huge thing. You have to rely on yourself, and the work ethic is different. The way so many things were done were so different. The food, I love food, like I love my culture. Food, not being able to find what I wanted, not being able to find places to get my hair done, not being able to find basic things that, ordinarily we took for granted in Nigeria. It was a huge challenge, being able to make friends. And of course, my accent, it was very thick too. And, because in Nigeria, we are trained in British English. So coming here and trying to, the spellings are so different, pronunciations are so different. Like even when we study in Nigeria, we study phonetics. The phonetics is British phonetics. Mm-hmm. So it's which is so different from the American. Like even now, and I still struggle sometimes. There are some words that I still pronounce the British way, because I'm not sure which one, because the way our pronunciations, we have the British pronunciations of vowels and alphabets, and we have my ethnic pronunciations, which are different. So I still struggle with that. The spellings are not the same. For example, labor. In the British English, labor is L-A-B-O-U-R, but in America is L-A-B-O-R. So there are so many different ways, and the grammatical functions, like my children come to me sometimes, mommy this, I'm like, no, it's not like that. And, they bring it to me and they prove to me that I'm like, okay, like recently I told them, just don't ask me because I don't want to be confusing you, because this is how we were trained, which is not the same with how they are trained. For example, like an egg, but in America, they say a egg. It's like, the rules. So it was a lot of struggles, especially when I had to do the bar exam. So it was a huge, huge struggle for me to try to really straighten that out.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's a big one. What was key to overcoming some of those challenges?
Growing up in Nigeria, I think pretty much most African countries, or probably most likely most third or developing countries, is we've been hungry. I've been hungry. I've struggled without hope of what next. There were times, in Nigeria, when you go to school, if you don't pay your tuition, you will not write the exam. So it's not like here there are student loans, you can use the libraries, you don't have to buy books. No, you have to find ways to do things you need to do, and you have to pay upfront or you're not going to be allowed to take the exams. So with that, there were days to exam, I'm still struggling, looking for ways to borrow to make up my tuition instead of studying. So when you've had to go through that or have to borrow people's books and, you have to return it because it's in their calendar for them to study these times. When you're literally struggling like that, and all of a sudden you come to somewhere you have so much opportunities, it's easier, not to say that it's not a challenge, but knowing that if I try harder, if I don't give up, there is a light definitely at the end of the tunnel. So looking at it that way has been a huge, I tell myself, it's pretty much one of the things we kind of say casually in Nigeria, it's not going to cost a human head, so why not? So.
Okay. Wow, that's pretty heavy. That's a very good inspiration, however, and to hear that perspective that if you try hard and you go ask questions and you seek help, it's there to be had. It may take some effort to get there, but it's there to be had. And actually, I think that somewhat answers the question of what resources were most beneficial to you. So I would assume it's libraries. What other resources did you tap into?
When I came here,
to help you get through the challenges.
My church was a huge support. I had different sources through my church because we are very huge on religion. So one of the first things we were able to find here was church, a home church to belong to. So, and our priest was so awesome. Like, even when I asked questions and she couldn't afford to help me, she would connect me with someone who could. For example, when I wanted to, because I couldn't get licensed in Maine, but I got licensed in New York, I could practice federal law. So at some point I decided, okay, since I couldn't get a job that I felt befitting, I might as well try, to strike out on my own, start my own law practice, limit myself only to federal law. So I started immigration law. But when I was doing that, I didn't have any experience. Am I breaking?
Nope, I'm actually, keep going. Okay. I'm just going to quickly, I'm teeing up the picture of you in front of.
I didn't have any training, I didn't know how to start, where to start from. I mean, I had done businesses in Nigeria, but this place is so different. So I couldn't, of course, afford financially to start setting up a business. I didn't have a client, I didn't have the clientele. So where was I supposed to get the cash when I wasn't even sure if I was going to be successful anyways? So I decided, okay, maybe I should look for an office space I could rent only as needed. So if I needed to consult with a client, I could pay for however long it took me to consult with a client. And when I was done, I would just go to my house or library, wherever, and do my work. So in the, while I shared that with because my priest kind of became a friend too. Like, she was like a resource I could reach out to pretty much anytime. So I mentioned to her that this is what I'm planning on doing. And I'm looking for an office space downtown, preferably, where I could only rent when I need it. So I wouldn't have to buy all the other office and all the bills associated. So she later was like, wait, you said you need only when you have a client, because I didn't want people, coming to my house.
Right.
So, and of course I needed privacy to consult with people. So I couldn't be meeting people in general public spaces. So I said, yes, only when I needed it. He was like, you know what, we have a church office. Why don't you come when you need it, And that was how I started my law practice. So literally I started my law practice with pretty much no upfront cost, apart from, the official money I had to pay to register a business. That was just do the basic things I needed to do and market myself a little bit. So my church, there wouldn't be a story of me without my home church here in Bangor.
That makes a lot of sense. Anybody that's that obviously church was very dominant in helping you. Is there so we've got the library.
I didn't have, because I wasn't really working. Then I didn't have, when we came on a H1 visa. He had the H1B, I had the H4. So H1B then was the type that only the person who had the H1B could work. So the spouse of the H1B holder, which has a H4 visa, can only legally live here, but cannot seek paid employment. So until 2013, I didn't have papers to work. So I couldn't seek employment. So because there was no I wasn't working, because work is a way for people to socialize. Yeah. I really wasn't socializing because there were no people like me too. And one thing when I say people struggle to understand is that I'm a shy person. So I struggle, to get out there sometimes. And especially then I wasn't really socializing. My outing was to go to church or church events and maybe go grocery shopping, a couple of kids' activities in the community here and there. So I didn't really, I mean, there were a couple of Blacks or Africans around. We kind of became, passive friends or thereabout, but I wasn't really involved in anything really because, and everybody had a job pretty much. So when you're hanging out with people, like you're friends with people who go to work, when do they have to hang out with you? So exactly. I just had to be on my own. So it was mostly my church.
Okay, I get it. And you're inspiring me on some fronts. Although not a completely parallel experience, being a new Mainer from anywhere, you face some of that. It's far more dramatic for someone like yourself immigrating from Nigeria than it is for me immigrating from Ohio into Maine. But the whole idea of finding
my accent was a huge reason why I looked to myself, because most times communication was a big issue that, I would be talking, people would be like, what did you say? Say that again. And honestly too, I was still struggling to understand the English too. So it was, most times instead of having to say, what did you say? Say that again and all of that, I would just retreat back to myself. So it was, of course, also the burden of motherhood too, without any form of support was also another huge thing.
Oh, I can see how the church helped. Okay, let's segue into the fact that you opened your own market and hair care business. And while we are starting that conversation, I'm going to tee up a picture of you with a couple of ladies. So what inspired you to open your own market and hair care business?
So when I first came, I said that one of my struggles was I couldn't find somewhere to braid my hair. I couldn't find somewhere to find the food that I wanted. And also the few people that will come here that are, Black people or Africans, they will come to school here at Husson. And when they were finished, they would leave. And most of them would cite not having a place to get their hair braided or not being able to find their ethnic food. Mm-hmm. So, and also I like food anyways. So, right. So it was mostly, I would say selfish or personal reason, because it wasn't just that I wanted myself to have access to those services, but I also wanted those people to stay, because like I said, I was, I wanted people like myself to help me, have friends, associate with people. I wanted my children to be able to have friends that look like them too. So it was more of me wanting more people to stay. And of course, while making money doing that, why not? So the hair braid, I learned how to braid hair on my own head because I couldn't find a place to do hair, which was also, I also learned to sew by myself because I just needed to. So starting the business was, I want these people, can you stay? They say food is the problem now, you have this food, so can you stay? I can't find where to braid my hair. I added the hair braiding. So can you stay now? So that has always been my drive to get people to come and stay here.
Interesting, very good. All right, I'm going to stop the share for a minute. And that's fascinating. Well, you faced the challenge and you went after it, filled in where the gap was. That's impressive. How about joining this Bangor City Council? So what has your experience been being the only woman of color and only immigrant? I have another picture.
Currently, I'm no longer the only immigrant, and I'm no longer the only woman of color from this year. From November, another Dinaya Kubaha joined me. She's a hijabi wearing Muslim from, I believe it's Iraq. Or I think, yeah, she's from the Middle East. So we are two now, thankfully. So it was one of those crazy ideas, because my friends say that I'm crazy, and I'm beginning to actually own the craziness lately.
By the way, this is you with Janet Mills.
Yes, it was after the election that I won. So her team reached out to me, and it was a very, very insightful and proud moment to meet her as the first female governor of the state. So it was very gratifying and for me to meet with her. So my children had struggled through the schools, and I have struggled too. And most of the times, those struggles, I felt like we would report or complain to the authorities, but I wasn't sure if things were actually being put in perspectives when, policies were being made, considering my personal concerns. So I had this friend who lives in Hamden who had this issue too with her son. Then actually, I just finished having surgery and I had pulmonary embolism. So I was on, recovery. So that day she presented to the Hamden School Board, and I wanted to go. I told her, because she was like, some of our friends wanted to kind of go just to, give her moral support. And I wanted to go, but they were like, girl, sit down. Like, don't worry, we'll record it for you. Because I was like, can somebody come pick me up? Because I couldn't drive then. So they were like, no, you stay home, girl. Like, we'll record it for you. So I said, okay. So she recorded it. And while I was watching it that day, when I watched her speak, I listened to her speak, it occurred to me like everybody there too was white. No disrespect meant, but the things she was saying and what the efforts she has put in to actually get people to see where she was coming from. I was like, how will this even make sense to these people when they don't really they don't really live this? Not so that they mean not to listen, but what you don't understand it. So I reached out to her. I'm like, hey girl, why don't you run for school board? She was like, you too, why don't you run? I started giving all the excuses, like, I can't because of this, I can't because of that. But later on, I was like, wait, so what am I actually doing? I'm telling her not to be a hypocrite, but I'm actually being the head of the hypocrites. So I said, okay, why don't I run? But then when I looked into it, I was like, okay, school committee, city, it was a drag, like which one and all of that. So I decided to settle for the city council. So for me, it was mostly because I learned that at some point, I'm not going to lie, I felt, why can't people understand that, these issues we're going through? But as time went on, I learned, and the more I came in contact with more people, the more I learned that most of the problems were not just people ordinarily wanting to be mean, but it was more about not understanding, not knowing. I learned that most Mainers haven't even left Maine. So how will you understand when you've not even left? So when I started to understand that, it changed a lot of my perspective from why can't they see this? So which is part of why I started with advocacy too, and educating people on, real struggles of people like myself and what drives us. Because, all the sayings that, oh, they're coming here to take our jobs, or they're coming here to become burdens and all of that. So, or that, how can you say that this happened and that happened? But when I had to, I remember when I was pushing for some policy changes, I had to reach out to, even my colleagues one-on-one to tell them some really very personal experiences that I've had, just so they will understand, and it has really, I'm so proud of our community, where we came from and where we are right now, because I am proud to be part of the education and the enlightenment to say that Bangor has been a huge, huge leader in the state of Maine as a city in doing so many things. For example, the Permanent Commission on racial indigenous and tribal populations in the state of Maine. Bangor has something like that on a lower scale, and no other city in this whole state has something like that, you know. And I am proud to say that it was my brainchild, because one of the struggles too that I faced was I would have issues with the school, and I would come to maybe, it was a lot of, I would say, non-communication, like, oh, the school, school is on its lane, the city council is on its lane. But I was like, no, like they should be together, because this is like saying, okay, the parent is different, the child is different. The children go to the schools, but the parents pay the taxes. How can you say, this is different and that is different? So one of the major, things with the advisory committee in Bangor on race, diversity, equity, and inclusion and human rights is to connect the first of its kind, to connect the school committee and the city council to work together. So this was one of the things that my dreams, to bring these two bodies to work closer together than they had already been working, and to bring about so much awareness as to what children of color go through and people of color go through in our community. And like I said, one thing that drives me in all of this is getting people to come and stay here. Mm-hmm. And I am glad right now that our greater community and state as a whole, well, let me focus mostly on my community more, that we've seen the benefits of getting people to stay here, not just come and tap into the resources we have, and when they are gone, they leave, but to understand that getting people to come and stay is our key to economic development. So I am very proud that I was one of the forerunners of this idea.
Good for you. That is powerful and great. It's great to know about. It's going to cause me to watch and follow Bangor and see how we can reapply it across the state. And I'm sure conversations with Janet Mills would contribute to some of that too. She can help you, what do you call it, search and reapply, or have the state, other parts of the state search and reapply what you guys are, what you and.
We have Orono. I testify to Orono, yeah. Because they looked into the same model. So like I said, I'm proud to say that I'm in Bangor and that, we lead. So.
Good for you. Good for you. Well, I'm learning one of the next questions was, what do you hope to accomplish on the Bangor City Council, which clearly you are accomplishing a lot of your goals. Is there anything else you're at the tip of working on, or you're thinking, well, I'd like to go there, but I haven't had the capacity yet?
There are so many, it never ends. Over time, as time goes on, new things unravel.
Go closer to your computer.
Okay. So as time goes on, we learn new situations arise, and think of ways to. I'm more of a solution, long-term solution kind of person. Not that I don't like, instant, but I always like to look for policy changes versus let's feed this person, but how can we empower this person to be able to feed themselves? So there is something I brought on the legal team, our legal team, and the city staff are working on right now to branch out from the state's new law on food independence. Because when we talk about people coming here, we know that when people come here, food is a very powerful element in economic development, like it or not, understand it or not, but it is. So, and most time, it's very fundamental, and not just any kind of food. People come here and they want to eat what they are used to. Some people want to eat things that are new, try new things. So you find out that people there are opportunities for small people, especially women, and especially mothers of young kids who may not be able to go into full-time employment, but they could be able to do certain businesses on their own. I would say, for example, in Nigeria, for example, as a woman, you're trained to cook. So as a woman who can cook and who has to take care of little children, like myself, when my kids were very young, even up till now, I really don't have help, family support. Yes, now I have friends and community of, that support me, but I look at myself when I didn't have that, and I imagine other women who are like that and going through that, but who can cook and who can make money from their food they cook. So how can we, because the truth is, in our community now, there are people making ethnic food and selling directly to people, which the way it is now, it's kind of still illegal in Maine. But the truth is, it will not stop it, because if you're, let's say you're from Nigeria and you come here and you're a man and you can't cook, or you don't have the time to cook, because like I said, growing up in Nigeria, most parents only teach women to cook. So a man come bachelor student, they can't even cook to save their lives, and they need this food. So this woman is going to make this food irrespective of anything and collect the money. But how about we make it official, so they can not just cook this food, but they can advertise it? We had a Jamaican restaurant in Bangor a couple years ago, but he folded. With this situation, he folded because there was not enough sales. But imagine if this person had the opportunity to be cooking food and selling to, of course, there will be regulations, but not as strict as having to start a full-blown restaurant. If he was able to be doing that on a low scale, he would have saved up, he would have gathered more clientele, and potentially his business may not have failed. So this will give a lot of leverages to people to establish before they actually blow up into businesses. And this is what we want for people to come here, not just stay, but to afford us more opportunity. Food-wise, I mean, this is a tourist area. When people come from different places, they want to explore all these things. And here's the beautiful part of it. This is now a business. So these individuals are making money, but the city's making money too. And these people get to stay. And these people create more jobs. So guess what? We are all winning. So that is the next thing I'm putting forward. And thankfully, we have this new law. So hopefully we are able to, the legal is looking into how we can do that and be able to watch that.
Fascinating and very interesting tie of the new law to the reallys in Bangor and with people. Okay, so let's switch subjects a little bit from all the wonderful work you're doing in the Bangor City Council and in your business and in the world of law to just a question, who or what inspires you?
I've said that what inspires me mostly are my personal experiences. So when I struggle, I think of how can I make it a little better for the next person. So everything I've done and everything I keep doing mostly is from my own personal experiences.
That is powerful. That is a powerful motivator because you've had a bunch of them. What do you think's been most important for you in achieving your goals?
My children, motherhood.
Can you say more?
When I look at my children, I remember myself growing up, and I remember, watching my parents, and I remember how much I wanted so many things that I couldn't get. So I want to be able to, one, give my children those things I couldn't get, but also I want to not just teach my children, but I want to show them that, it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, what your stories are, what your experiences are, but that you can actually do anything you want to do. Also, I like to, I prefer showing than, saying, oh, I will teach or I want people to learn. No, but I want to show also as from my struggles too. Another thing that motivates me is, being a woman, the struggles I've gone through and the struggles I see women going through. When I used to look for jobs, I remember there were interviews I went to and I was asked, what if you got pregnant, on the job? Because I've been pregnant 7 times. I had 4 miscarriages. I have 3 live children, or 3 live births. So when I was pregnant, they will ask, how they will ask about the space in between employment. And it was, when I was pregnant and I was on bed rest, I was put on bed rest because I was high risk pregnant. My pregnancies were high risk. So, and then, what if you got pregnant in between, And those were not things that were fun because I felt, so because of this, I can't have a job, and raising, sometimes they will ask, oh, your children are still young. How do you plan to walk through that?
You
So
actually were asked those questions.
I mean, yeah. I mean, sometimes too.
So
I don't
individual.
think sometimes I know, but sometimes I don't think some of them didn't ask. Even I will go for interviews, they will ask me, how did you learn English? I think some people as at then were so fascinated to not understanding so many things about Africa. Oh, do you have libraries in Africa? How did you, did you study English when you came here? How come you speak, So it was, a lot was, I believe, where a lot of them, I'm not excusing all, a lot of them, I believe, were curiosity. Not like I said, then you will hardly see any person that wasn't white. Right. Then, at least in Bangor and environment. So with all of that, I like to show women too, especially women of mothers of young children, that it's okay if you choose not to work, but at the same time, if you want to work, that children cannot keep you down. They may slow you down. They slowed me down, but you can still push through. When I campaigned, I was campaigning with my children sometimes, and sometimes they want to go to the park. I will go with my flyers while they were playing. I will still be talking to parents, and in my businesses, I had my children. I had the mats. I had the eat food at the store. People are there. I'm sweeping out grains of rice all over the floor, and there were times people will make insulting and comments, but it is what it is. I have had customers even come to my rescue against a customer who's like, you should be sweeping when people are not here. Why you see children sitting down and still fighting over grains of rice and mess, and people are like, are you okay? Did you not see children? So it's, things like that. And sometimes when I feel like I'm failing, you see women who will like, oh my God, like cheer me up and acknowledge that, you're doing this with children. Oh my goodness. So that is another thing that motivates me, because when my kids were pretty too young, it was a huge, huge struggle.
Mm-hmm. Wow, interesting. Very interesting. So amidst all of these awesome accomplishments and life transitions, what would you consider to be your biggest accomplishment so far?
Like I said, my children.
Your children. I thought if I could have predicted what you were going to say, you would say that. And I think we understand that. And I applaud that. As a fellow mother of kids, I have 3 of them, I would agree with you 100%.
They've challenged me a lot, and they keep pushing me, wanting to do more. Okay. And the pride in their eyes and in their words towards me, it makes me want to do more. It makes me want to make them more proud. It makes me want to push more.
Good for you and good for them. So what would you say some of your conclusions are, what we could do as a community to better support immigrants?
I think education, wanting to learn, being part of community, reaching out. One of the things that I think we are beginning to learn and understand is that in coming to America, I realized so many things we take to be a shame in Africa, or we struggle to accept or reach out for. It's a given here. It's like nothing, like I know I've struggled with my health, the past 1 year. And I've had friends who told me, I don't care if you want this, but you're going to get this help. Like, I used to struggle with even allowing anybody watch my children, but I had friends like literally show up on my door, like, I'm here to take the kids so you can rest. Like, I'm not telling you, So it's one of the things that we struggle a lot, because growing up in Nigeria, for example, everybody's struggling. So you try not to, you feel like you're a burden to the next person. So you don't want to burden people. You don't want to ask for help, even when you're dying for it. Even when you're being offered for help, you feel like the next person is literally struggling so hard and just trying to be nice. So you turn down help. But here is like, no, it's okay. And, so that is one thing, but you will not know that until you associate with people, until you try to learn and understand where people are coming from. So I think the biggest thing is, which is one of the things I'm so proud that it happened, is starting the conversation about educating Mainers about people from away to understand, because I believe in this whole process, we've grown to understand that we have a lot of commonalities. We just have to seek them out. When I first started, I struggled with the schools, but now we are best buddies, and I understood that because then I was upset. I'm not going to lie then, that why can this happen? Why can that happen? But over time, I learned that it wasn't because they didn't want to help. But when people don't understand something, the easiest and the safest thing to do is to try to avoid those things. So those conversations were being avoided because people didn't understand them. What was the right way to do it or say it? How will I say it and it won't be offensive, But all this education is enlightening people, on making people understand, it's okay, even if you don't understand race, to ask questions. Yes, being sensitive about it, but at least showing curiosity that is right, and understanding when you overstep, how to, get back on track. I think it's very, very important. And I think that is one of the things that has really moved my community here in Bangor, owning up that, hey, yeah, there's a lot of things we do not know about other people, but we want to learn and we want to talk about them. So I'm proud also to say, again and again, to say that one thing that I believe we need to continue to do is to continue to have those conversations, make space, make policy changes that will accommodate people that are different, are from away, understanding where they are coming from, understanding the values they bring to the table, and learning ways to be uncomfortable, to talk about these uncomfortable issues. I think that is the one most important thing. Keep talking, keep talking, keep talking.
Very, very good and clear and helpful. Good perspective. So what's next for you? Aside from the food agenda that you have, because that's one of your...
What? Well, currently I'm doing my MBA.
Okay.
I should be graduating this May, and I'm using this time to also study. I want to become a real estate licensee.
You do? Interesting. And I can see a business and law comes together very well in real estate. Exactly. But that's not necessarily what I expect you to say.
Yes, exactly. I'm not licensed to practice law in Maine, but I could do certain things to expand my hold on law. So
I want to get to questions from the audience, but I've got to ask this. What is it about real estate that attracts you?
I like the fact that because I have this huge community engagement, I have a lot of engagement with the community.
Yes.
I want to be able, I like to, business a lot, but at the same time, I want, when I'm doing things that I love, why not be making money from it too?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Why not?
Yeah, absolutely. Good for you. That's cool. Well, that's the end of my official question, or the questions we had pre-planned. I see that there's a couple of questions in the Q&A, so I'm going to pull that up. Okay, so I have someone who says, so lovely hearing from you, Angela. You are truly a self-made woman. What motivates you to, oh, wait a minute. I've already asked some of this. What advice would you give to younger women in challenging positions to maintain their motivation?
Thank you for that. It's very stressful, and it's easier to advise than when you're in the situation. Yes. But I would say, for me, like I said, the way I look at things is, if I don't do it, I will never know if I would succeed. And if I go in, and even if the worst thing that will happen is I will fail, it's not going to cost a human head. And also to understand that there are people to help. Believing in yourself, that even when you stumble, there is always a way. I believe that there is always a way. If I knock on this door and it doesn't open, I might as well knock on the other door. If it doesn't open, I keep knocking. I mean, I believe there is always a door. It may not be open, it may be cracked. So, and when you have a cracked door, you can easily push it open. So, you know, I think that most times these days we are always looking for open doors. And the truth is, when you keep looking for open doors, you'll be so blinded to seeing even a cracked door. Some doors have to get some help to open. So
I'm just writing something down because I'm fascinated by what you're saying. That's very, very interesting. And I think outstanding. That's outstanding advice. I'm going to look at there's another question here. What do you see as one of the biggest opportunities for women in the state of Maine?
I think the biggest opportunities for women lies in policy changes and for women to be more confident in themselves, and which is, like I said, part of my motivation to show women that, you know, especially women with young mothers of young children or single mothers, that those struggles that you're going through, which you think are barriers, you could do whatever you want to do, however you want to do it, and you can create your own space. Me, for example, when I was campaigning, like I said, people didn't understand why I was dragging children around. But I'll buy snacks for them. There are creative ways. You know, you can still bring your children in. At my store, I will bring their toys, I will bring their bikes. Like, you know, some children will even come to my store with their parents and they'll be playing because I'll put the magnetic letters and alphabets and stuff on my fridge. Parents come to shop with their children. Children are busy playing there. They are, you know, hitting my children's bands and they are playing, you know. So there is always a way to try to walk around things. And especially right now with COVID, I think this COVID has worked to the advantage of us women mostly. Yes, men, but mostly women, because it has shown that it's about productivity. And we women, we are so talented with multitasking, more than men. That's the truth. So if you can be at home and be, you know, changing a diaper and still be working, you know, you see, you don't have to go to the office to accomplish this. So you can be whatever you want to do in your house and while taking care of your children. And another thing too, I feel that us women need to also learn and try to take advantage of is the fact that, you know, you can create things from what you love to do. It doesn't have to be, this is how it has always been. This is how it has always been. No, what if, nobody has tried it this way? What if you tried it that way? Worst case, like I said, it's not going to cost a human head. The worst thing is you wouldn't succeed or you wouldn't know if you don't try anyways, right? So I think that this is actually a very strategic time for women to really, try to get up and take charge of things, because this pandemic my dad taught me to always, that there is always something positive in every situation. You just have to look. Yes, it's a health pandemic, a world pandemic, and it has crippled so many things. But guess what? It has proven what women have been trying to show, to prove, to explain long time ago. That we as women, you can do so many things. We just need the opportunity. So if now people have been able to be working from home and still be very productive, and even men working while children are around and dancing up and down, and we are those men as heroes. Imagine what we women, we are very resilient, we are very hardworking, most of us, we are very strong. Imagine what women who are used to multitasking can do from home while still raising children. So that's the way I look at it.
Very inspirational and a message to be shared. I will tell the audience if any, it looks like I have another question that's come up. Wait a minute, I don't know how to, whatever. The next anonymous attendee, you mentioned that you're not able to work for some time after arriving in Maine on your visa. The same is true for refugees. Do you think it's important that immigrants and refugees have the ability to work outside the home when they arrive in Maine?
Yes. I don't want to say I believe, I know for a fact that it's very important. There are so many underlying issues, especially for women. When people don't work, what do you think it leads to most times? Economic abuse. And most immigrants go through a lot of abuse in plain sight because of some of these restrictions. When you have to depend on somebody else for money, we know how it almost always ends. And most of these women from most of these cultures, the culture is so different. The duty and burden is more on the woman. You are, there's this extended family. There's a lot of things restricting you from seeking out help like an average American woman would want to. So most of the times it enables abuse on women, especially. So I believe it should, but like I said, that is why it's best to look into policy changes, and who better to do that than women, which is part of why I encourage women, run for office, because you as a woman, you see those things. If you don't experience them, you have friends who have experienced them. You have neighbors who have experienced them. Tap into their stories, find ways to share those stories, find ways to have those stories encourage you to go in there. Not just be voting for people or telling people or giving money, but your voice. There are so many things money cannot do. Your voice and presence at the table will change. So absolutely, I feel that it's very unfair to give people the visa to say, yeah, come, family unification. But family unification, exactly, there's a lot of depression. Like I said, then I didn't have friends. I didn't have, imagine Bangor, there was nothing to do. It's not like there's a lot still to do now, but at least there are options now. But then it was even worse to be stuck at home all by myself. And, it was a lot of depression. It was a lot of loneliness. It was a lot of things going on. So yes, that is why it's very important for us, especially as women, to get out there and, run for offices, support women that are running for offices, vote them, women that are running for office. I'm not saying vote any blind, any kind, no, but, encourage, we know in our communities which women that are okay. And like me, when I ran, part of my encouragement I had a huge community support that, some of them, like I said, will help me watch my children, will help me make things easier for me, to be able to do what I needed to do while helping me maybe watch my children or keep them busy while I went for the debate I needed to do, or, things, little things like that. If you feel you can't run, there's a woman running, reach out, find a way to support that woman to run for office instead of tearing them down.
That is highly motivating. And thank you for sharing it so directly and so based on principles and experience. Thank you. So I think we're just about 8 o'clock. This has been a fascinating hour of discovery, and I can tell based on some of the chat and just my own experience how much I've learned and how interesting it is and how proud I am for you and for us of what you've done and what you'll continue to do. I have a feeling we're going to hear from you more prominently in the full Maine scene as time passes. And please don't leave, stay in Maine.
Oh, I'm not going anywhere. I'm creating my everything in Maine. I'm not going anywhere.
That's fabulous. Well, thank you for joining us. And I actually have another poll to launch. I don't remember what it is. Whoops, that's poll number 2. Hold on. There goes the tech. Oh, this is a poll asking, would you recommend the WeAreME event to a friend? It's just some interesting information for us as we organize for these interviews. So if you could, oh, wait a minute, I have to launch it. If those of you who are listening could respond, that would be great. In the meantime, that's good. We've got some good positive responses. I'm going to end that poll, take it down. And I'd like to thank everybody who joined us tonight. We hope you'll join us for our next WeAreME interview, which will be on March 9th. And we will be featuring a person whose picture I'm going to launch. But again, hold on while I do things try to do two things at once. We will be talking with Heather Strout Thompson. Heather is a fourth-generation lobster woman, and she's a lobster boat racer from Harrison, Maine. She will be joining us again on March 9th at 7 p.m. You can actually register. It's like this event, a free event. I'm going to go back to the main screen and share with you in chat, which for some reason, wait a minute, everybody. Come on. How do I share it? There we go. That's the link to our Eventbrite registration page for Heather's interview. So feel free to go right there if you'd like, or come in at another point. We also encourage you to follow the Maine Women's Conference on social media to stay up to date on what we're up to and to connect with us. We'd love to hear from you about what you thought of this event and who you'd like to see featuring in other upcoming WeAreME interviews. We're really excited to be offering this series. We hope you leave today feeling inspired, empowered, educated. I don't know how you could listen to this interview tonight and not have felt all of those fabulous things, but also connected with your fellow Mainers, including new Mainers like Angela. You've actually lived in Maine longer than me, but who have been through fascinating journeys and are doing so much to enhance the community of Maine. So Angela, thank you again. I really hope our paths cross. I hope you join us at the Maine Women's Conference next fall, which will be in person down in Portland in late October. And with that, I think I will close off this evening. Best wishes to everybody. Happy 2022. We'll talk to you soon.
You did awesome doing all of that. Two people.
We got through it. Now see if I know how to turn it off. But see you later. Thanks, everybody. And thanks, Angela.